In our search for the treasures of the human being, we would want a vehicle as rapid as possible, a road as short and less traveled as it can be. I'll dare to say that we wouldn't find any of these. Instead of a high-speed airplane, we would rather find a lazy carriage. Instead of a freeway carved to clear concepts, we will be rolling on a paved road full of bumps, where we will often stick into the mud of some questions without answers. And at the end of this road we will find the horizon always moving off, never to be reached. But shouldn't we prefer a hard route, but one real and full of experiences, instead of a way as gentle and elusive as the treasures to which it leads? Instead of some fabricated truths, shouldn't we choose a toiling knowledge, tore out at great pains from the grasp of this land we are wandering and we are being?
It's very often the case that people tell the story of consciousness as the sort of late development of this property which tends to be seen largely as human, but of course, as we know, it cannot be human.
Yes.
Only it's very widespread. And this process of consciousness is the process that allows us to run our lives personally and in society the way we do. It's the thing that gives us access to high thinking and high decision making and very high qualities of reasoning, and that's sort of a late development in evolution and in the brain and of course in the mind processes. And I think that this is entirely wrong. And what I think is that the processes of running life and organizing life have been set from very early on in very simple life forms.
Yes.
In fact, in cells that are as simple as bacterial cells, which when you look at them have the most amazing capacities. They have capacities, for example, of organizing socially. They have capacity of fending off individually for themselves and maintaining life and struggling for their existence. And in fact, they even have the possibility of organizing themselves to the point of doing what is now called by biologists working with bacteria as quorum sensing. They will be able, the bacteria, without a brain, without a nervous system of any kind, they will be able to sense how many of them are there. Is this enough to do what we need to do in this process?
Yes.
How can we fight for territory?
But this is fascinating because it's not self-reflective self-consciousness, but it has all the underpinnings of human social behavior.
And so what I think is happening with us is that little by little we have evolved the ability with our high brains and very complex organization of the nervous system, we have evolved the ability to discover that these things exist and have existed all along, and to then project the process of consciousness into a completely different dimension, which is instead of just running the basic homeostasis, just running the basic life regulation, which largely has been given by our genome, we can now invent something new, which is running what I like to call socio-cultural homeostasis.
Right.
One in which we can create, we can deal with solutions. But I think the very interesting idea is that those solutions have as a blueprint the solutions that nature gave us. But they allow us to do something different from what nature, which fundamentally is indifferent and callous, ordained us to have. And so this allows you to, I like to, when people say, well, what is sociocultural homeostasis? And I said, well, do you know about the Supreme Court?
Yes,
the U.S.
exactly.
Supreme Court is a cauldron for
Absolutely.
Development of
the balance of powers, homeostasis.
And the Organization of Financial System is another such example. And the appearance of the arts, the appearance of medicine, the appearance of technology, all of those are developments that have at their root exactly the same origin and the same cause and the same effect. They are related to the homeostatic impulse that can be broken when you are at a loss, and they have as a purpose the restoring of lost homeostatic balance. And you do that by laws, by moral systems, by medicine, by technology, and by the arts to start with.
Yes, and it's true But we could not have those things if we didn't have this relational, this self-conscious relational.
Absolutely.
You know, I,
Yeah.
you, or I, it. That is represented to ourselves in some kind of symbolic system.
Absolutely.
So that's the highest result of this homeostatic impulse that is built into the most primitive animals
Absolutely.
or life forms.
Yeah, so we need to represent something that has to do with the self as organizer of life and the self as knower.
And perhaps at the last stop we'll be convinced that the traveler is the road, and the treasures lay in us, reflected in the mirror of our peers.